Welcome to Brewers Daily. I'm your host, Dave Gasper. Lots to get to here on a Friday show. Spring training is underway here. Pitchers and catchers have reported. We've had workouts going on. We got some news in Brewers' contract situation, some free agent news. Not necessarily the Brewers, but Brewers adjacent. We'll get into that. And also, I want to get into doing a pitcher highlight here today on the show and maybe try to work some of these in throughout spring training, either highlighting a specific pitcher or a hitter throughout camp. Just one of these Brewers players in terms of their performance, what maybe we can expect from them this season statistically, what their role is going to be, things like that. So we'll kind of feel out that as it goes, but we're going to get that started here on Brewers Daily and as spring training here goes along. But we have to start with the important news here of the day, and that is William Contreras agreeing to avoid arbitration with the Milwaukee Brewers. This was fantastic to see because arbitration hearings are nasty. Okay, they are terrible because the team has to go in and tell this arbitration panel every terrible thing about this player. Okay, they have to go through every little detail, just being like, this guy's not good enough, he doesn't deserve this kind of salary. And while on the outside, and while in general, the team may know, like, hey, William Contreras, you are arguably the best catcher in all of baseball. They will tell the whole world, William Contreras is the best catcher in baseball. We love him so much. He's fantastic. We love everything about him. When you're in an arbitration hearing, you hate practically everything about him. Okay, so avoiding that would really be nice because a lot of times the players are there and they end up hearing all the bad things that the team is saying about them, and it gets very nasty. You get hurt feelings. No one wants it. But thankfully, the Brewers were able to avoid it here. William Contreras was asking for $9.9 million in arbitration. He ends up agreeing with the Brewers at $9.4 million. So they agreed before going into the hearing. So he comes out at $9.4 million, and he does have a club option for next season, which would be his last season of team control, his last season of arbitration. So the Brewers could potentially avoid arbitration again, or kind of similar to what they did this year, they could decline that club option and go through arbitration one more time. So the option for William Contreras is for $14.5 million for next season, but he's getting $9.4 million this year. Also getting some bonuses for awards. If he wins MVP, Silver Slugger, those kinds of things. Okay, those are kind of standard in some of these contracts. So they have settled. That is all done. That is taken care of, and now Contreras and the Brewers can just focus on ball. Just focus on getting ready for the season. That's all they got to do. They got the money taken care of. That's absolutely fantastic. Very important for them to do. We're seeing a lot of these arbitration cases come on down. The decisions being made, and Contreras was still holding on. I mean, he was seemingly one of the last to get scheduled here, and finally, before going in, the Brewers and Contreras were able to settle. So that's really kind of been the big news here, and that is just absolutely fantastic to see. That he is all set and taken care of. All right, so I want to get into highlighting a pitcher here as we are early on in camp. Only pitchers and catchers have officially reported. A lot of the other guys are there from the position player group. They're already in American Family Fields of Phoenix, but they don't have their official workouts yet. They haven't officially had to report. So we'll talk about the pitchers here. And I want to talk about the top pitcher, Brandon Woodruff. On this team. So Woodruff, he was slated to be a free agent this past offseason. The Brewers gave him a qualifying offer of just over $22 million that he accepted. So he is back. He is on a one-year deal. He's slated to hit free agency again after this season. And where that goes from there, if the Brewers bring him back, if they let him walk, we'll see. I think a lot of it will depend on his performance this season. Last year he came back from the shoulder injury and did really, really well. I mean, he was doing Brandon Woodruff's things. Ended up with a 3.20 ERA, making 12 starts down the stretch. in 64 and 2/3 innings, struck out 83, walked just 14. He was incredibly efficient. Even though the fastball velocity wasn't quite back to where it was pre-surgery, he knows how to pitch. He was able to get out. He was able to maneuver through these innings and do it pretty quickly as well, which I think was incredibly important for him. And it was just really fantastic to see. So heading into this season, Brandon Woodruff is your odds-on favorite to be your opening day starter. Pat Murphy hasn't necessarily said that yet, but I mean, last year, basically first day of spring training, he's like, "Yep, Freddie Peralta, that's your guy. Book it, write it down." Brandon Woodruff is most likely going to be the same thing. He's going to be your opening day starter, and they're going to be relying on him quite a bit. The questions are going to be there about his durability. In 2023, he pitched 67 innings. He was dealing with some injuries on and off, then got injured towards the end of the year, and that's when he had the surgery. This past year, obviously, was able to come back mid-season and pitched really well, and then got injured towards the end of the year. Had the lat injury, but the good news is the lat is completely fine. He's let that heal, so he's ramping up. Had a completely normal offseason, which was great for him to finally be able to have. So Woodruff is back, and I think we're expecting quite a bit out of him. So when you talk about ramp up, for pitchers who had only thrown so many innings the year before, you look at the 64 and 2/3 that Woodruff threw, and you think, oh man, he might be limited here in terms of innings. But also, Woodruff is more on the veteran side, so it's not like he hasn't thrown a ton of innings before. But also, let's not forget the 42 innings that he threw on rehab assignment, because he had to stop and start rehab a couple of times, if you remember. Dealt with a comebacker off the elbow, a whole bunch of freak things that kept delaying his return to the big league mound. So you add that all up, and you got 106 and 2/3 innings that he threw in official games last season. So I think he's going to be fully ramped up and ready to go to kind of have a full starter's workload. Hopefully, again, they're going to be careful with him. Maybe give him an extra day or so throughout the season, just as needed. Just making sure that his body responds well. And Woodruff knows his body incredibly well, as really a lot of these top athletes do. But he's been around the block a while. He's entering year 9 in the major leagues here. So he's going to be well in tune with what his body needs. If he needs an extra day of rest, they'll give him that and work through it with the rotation there. So I have full confidence that he's going to be able to be that guy, to give them as many starts as possible, throw as many innings as possible. I don't think he's going to have an innings restriction on him. I think they're going to allow him to go as far as his body will tell him he can go. And if they got to dial it back, they'll dial it back. But I think they're expecting Brandon Woodruff to be a really regular piece. And the question is going to be, does that velocity come back a little bit more this season? Because when you have that kind of shoulder surgery, the velocity not quite fully being there like it was before with his angry fastball, 98, 99. Will it get there again? Maybe not, now that he's entering his age 33 season. But does it come back at least a little bit more? He was a lot in the low 90s last season. Could dial it up to 94, 95 a couple of times. When he really needed it. So we'll see if he can get that back up a little bit more consistently. If he can reach a 96, where does that velocity sit? We'll find out as spring goes along, as the season goes along. But he's certainly more back to 100%. Than he ever has, than he has been since that surgery. So very excited to see what he's going to be able to do this season, and the Brewers are going to be relying on him quite a bit as the veteran leader for that group, because they have a lot of starting pitchers, and a lot of them are very young with not a lot of MLB experience. Woodruff is that chosen veteran leader for this group. He is going to be the grandpa telling stories. Kids gather around, I'm going to tell you stories about pitching in the big leagues, and help those kids along. So that's going to be his kind of role, on top of being the number one, being the ace, your opening day starter, and trying to pitch every single fifth day. So it's going to be a very important season for Woodruff. Again, last year of team control. He's a free agent after this. Will they sign him to an extension? Will he, sign a multi-year deal after this? Will he return to the Brewers for that multi-year deal, or will he go elsewhere? Will the Brewers value him that highly? Just, hey, look, whatever it is, just be here for a couple of seasons and just kind of be that lead dog for this group. We'll see what the Brewers' ultimate plans are with that, but I'm very excited for Brandon Woodruff's 2026. Keeping an eye on that velocity, how far back it comes, and just how often he's going to be able to be out there and pitch, because you just want him healthy. Because a healthy Brandon Woodruff is pretty damn good, as we have seen over the seasons. It's just ridiculous almost, the numbers that he has put up in his career, because he's got a career 3.10 ERA in the major leagues. It's just absurd what he's been able to do. Just such a reliable piece. When he's out there, you're getting a chance to win. And that is an absolute ace that you love to have. All right. So going from a guy that you love to have to a guy that, maybe certainly his most recent team does not, Nick Castellanos. So I've seen, some people talking about this, and obviously this was a big story. Nick Castellanos has been released by the Phillies. And, he kind of put out a statement about it. And, the Phillies made it clear all offseason they did not want him back. They told him not to show up to spring training. They were trying to find a trade partner. No one was wanting him in a trade, because why bother? You clearly don't want him. The Phillies had no leverage in talks. So they were just going to wait until the Phillies released him. And sure enough, that's what happened. So now that he's out there, Brewers could potentially, look for a thump or, offensive addition. Would Nick Castellanos be on the Brewers' radar? Let me answer you this. No. Straight up, no. Nick Castellanos is not going to be coming to Milwaukee. There's reports that he's got, interest from several teams out there, willing to pick him up on a, league minimum deal. But Nick Castellanos is horrible defensively. His bat has regressed. And, there's really kind of no spot that he fits on this Brewers roster. He'd be a maybe corner outfielder, DH type. It's not going to happen. If he could play a decent defensive third base, and maybe the Brewers would pick him up, but he does not. So that's not going to happen. Especially with, the story of him bringing a beer into the dugout after he got pulled in the ninth inning of a game in Miami. And trying to have some sort of smart comment to Rob Thompson, his manager. A little bit of clubhouse issues like that, and having those issues with the manager, that would not fly in Milwaukee. So no, if you have thoughts on Nick Castellanos becoming a Brewer, I'm sorry, but no, it's not going to be happening. So wish him the best wherever he ends up. As long as it's not with the Dodgers or the Cubs, please. But still, no, it's not happening. And what's also not going to be happening is Keston Hiura coming back to the Brewers. But Keston Hiura is back in baseball, still in baseball. He has signed a minor league deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Because, of course, why not go to the Dodgers? Maybe they can figure him out and figure out how to fix the hole in his swing, which he's going to be having to figure out how to do in AAA Oklahoma City, which is where he's most likely to be, because I don't see him cracking that Dodgers roster very much. They're just way too loaded with the rest of that group. So something's going to have to seriously go wrong if Keston Hiura ever makes it up to the big leagues with that team. But still, Keston Hiura, finding ways to stick around. He spent, previously played with the Colorado Rockies, which, is one of the worst teams in baseball. Kind of makes sense for a guy to maybe resurrect his career. The thin air in Denver, maybe that could help him, hit better, but he still struggled. And it's been such a wild ride for Keston Hiura. When the Brewers drafted him in the first round out of UC Irvine, he was this hitting savant. And, he comes up, rookie year, hits over 300. I had a little bit of a strikeout rate problem, but it's like, yeah, okay, but he still hit 300. The hit tool, seemed to be there, and then all of a sudden, it just cratered. Dude just could not hit at all after that. Had a hole in the swing. Pitchers figured it out. They exploited it, and he just was not able to adjust. And he has struggled to find a big league footing ever since. So it's been a tough go the last couple of years for him. I hope he finds a way to resurrect his career. But the Dodgers is going to be where he plays this season. And again, I don't see him playing in the big leagues much. They got this guy, Freddie Freeman, at first base. I don't know if you heard of him. But I don't think he's going to be ceding playing time anytime soon. So best of luck to Keston. Best of luck to Nick Castellanos as he's looking for a new home. But hey, it is that time of year. A lot of these guys just trying to find spring training homes, a team to be with, get into camp and see if you can just make an impact somewhere. And even if, like let's say Keston just goes off in spring training and has a fantastic spring, the Dodgers could end up trading him. Trade him to someplace else who has a need at the big league level for a guy like that. It's possible. You just got to get yourself into a camp and do what you can. So that's what Keston's doing. Nick Castellanos is going to do the same pretty soon, but it won't be in Milwaukee. So that's something I am very, very sure of. So that'll do it for this episode. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you enjoying. And be sure to subscribe to Brewers Daily. Get notified every single time a new episode drops. Follow me on Twitter at dgasper24, and we'll see you again next time for another episode of Brewers Daily.